Hi, this is Elijah with the Oxygen team. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a blog template structure with Oxygen for your WordPress blog. WordPress, even though it can be used for just about any kind of website, is at its core a blogging platform. So I thought today it would be nice to go over how to set up Oxygen and some Oxygen templates specifically for a WordPress blog. Now, if you have your WordPress site set up in a typical fashion where the front end is an index of your blog posts, then if you go to the front end right after installing Oxygen, and if you didn't install one of the pre-made sites during the installation, you will see something like this on the front end. That's because Oxygen completely disables the WordPress theme system, which means everything that tells your website what to look like is gone until you put it back using Oxygen. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in to the back end and go to Oxygen templates. And the first part of our templating, which is essentially replacing the normal WordPress theme, is a main template. The main template should generally contain a header and a footer and an element called inner content. And the inner content element just renders whatever's on the page you're viewing. So we're going to hit add new template, and we're just going to call this main. And under where does this template apply, we're going to say other and catch all, which means it'll apply to everything unless that thing has a more specific template applied to it. So we'll publish that, and then let's edit it with Oxygen and set up a basic header, inner content, and footer structure. This is how I like to start all of my Oxygen sites because it gives you a really solid framework to begin building out the rest of your content. So let's click add, and we'll type header in the search box to search for a header builder. And for this particular design, I have something in mind here. So I'm going to go ahead and set the background of this header row to this global red color that I have saved. You can also just pick a color here, but since I already have the color, I'm going to work with it. And for the site logo, I'm just going to build a logo out of some basic elements. So we're going to add a div, and this div will go into the left section of the header builder. And we're going to add an icon, and we're going to add another div. So within this second div, we're going to add a heading, and we're going to add some text. Okay, this is a basic kind of site logo layout. So let's add this text. Now we have this parent div, icon, a sub div, and then two text elements, a heading and a text element rather. First, let's select the parent div. And what we want to do is we want to add a background color. So go to advanced background, and we're going to set it to white, and then go to advanced size and spacing, and let's add some padding. Let's try 16 pixels. Perfect. Now let's change this icon, and I think for this we're gonna do kind of like a rocket theme or something. I know there's a rocket icon in here. Perfect. So we'll use a rocket icon, and then we're gonna call this let's do blast off. And then our little tagline here will be DIY Rocketry Blog. Okay, so on our heading, let's go to advanced typography. And I always like to adjust the line height of headings just so that we can more carefully control the space above and below them. And then let's select our parent div. And we're going to, in the primary tab of the properties pane, we're going to say stack child elements horizontally to get everything to stack kind of beside each other. And then we're going to center everything vertically. And then on the right side of this icon, we're going to add maybe 16 pixels of margin to get us some space between the icon and the text. Now what I want to do is I want to use our red color here in this logo area. So let's set the icon to this red color. And then I want just the off text here to be red. So I'm going to select it. And then in the top bar, click span, which basically makes this a nested element inside the heading so it can have its own settings here. So let's choose text color, and go to red. And then I think let's adjust the line height here down a little bit more. So I'm selecting the heading, going to advanced typography, and let's just set it to 1.0 line height. Okay, that looks pretty good, but I want our fonts to be different for this. I have an idea. I want something kind of space looking or futuristic. So let's go to manage settings and global styles. And we're not going to change it on these individual elements because we want everything to be consistent. So we change it in the global styles under fonts. And I know the text font, I think I want to go with Nunito Sans, which it looks pretty good. It's pretty straightforward. And then for this one, let's jump over to Google Fonts. This is going to be our heading font. So let's go to fonts.google.com and just browse through for something really quick. Something that would look good for most, if not all, of our headings. Now, when you're working with a logo that you're building out of headings and icons, you can style your heading a little differently than the rest of your site headings. But if you can find a font that works not only for your logo heading, but also for the rest of the headings on your site, then you have that added consistency, which just makes people feel better when browsing your site, I think. So this turret road here looks pretty good. It's kind of stylized and unique and should look good as part of this. So let's try turret road. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now one little trick I want to do here is I want this this white logo box to kind of extend below the edge of our header row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the div, which is the white box here, advanced size and spacing, and set the bottom margin to -16 pixels. So we're working with 16 pixels of padding, and we just took away 16 pixels of margin on the bottom, which brings everything up. Now, because it's overlapping, I'm going to want some box shadow on it. So let's go to Advanced Effects, Box Shadow, and let's pick a shadow color. I'm going to go fairly dark, and then let's go, I don't know, 70% transparency. Why not? And then we're going to have 0 horizontal offset, a little bit of vertical offset, and then a pretty big blur, but then a negative spread. So then we get a nice subtle effect. If you've watched my other videos, you've probably seen those exact settings before. Those are kind of my go-to with shadows. So that gives us kind of a nice subtle shadow effect there. So that way, when it overlaps something, some content below it that's white, you have something to define the edges. All right, so next we need a menu. So we're going to click Add and type Menu. And we're not going to do anything too fancy with the menu. We're going to drag it over to the right side of the header builder. And then obviously we're going to change the color of the links because that's hurting my eyes really bad. So let's change the text color to just white. Keep it simple here. And then spacing, let's adjust this to be more consistent. We'll do 16 pixels left and right, and then maybe 32 top and bottom. Make these kind of tall. Nope, I don't like that. We're going to back it off. Let's do 16 top and bottom. And then we need to change the hover background color. So let's go back here to the primary tab in the properties pane for the menu element and change hover and active. We're going to change the hover background color to a slightly darker version of our red color, just a little bit. That's too much. Let's bring it back up here. Yeah, that looks all right. And then we're going to go and get rid of this hover border. I don't really think that's needed here. So that looks decent enough. I do want to increase the font weight, but first I'm going to change the transition duration here. I always like to have a smoother effect on hover. So let's go back and go to text and increase the font weight to 600. Okay, so there's our menu and our logo and our header. So let's go ahead and save this, and then we're going to add the next element that is crucial to a proper main template in Oxygen, which is the inner content element. And the inner content element is magical because it simply reflects whatever's on the current page you're viewing, like in the WordPress content area, or even if the page has been designed in another page builder, it'll show that content. The other thing that it does is it gives you a defined area that other templates can manipulate within the main template. So what we'll do is once we have this template set up, we'll create a sub template for, say, individual posts, which will inherit the main template, which means we'll still have the header and footer, but we'll have this inner content area where we can add or remove, manipulate elements just like we would, on a blank template or a page. And again, that will become more clear as we proceed. So now let's add a footer. We're going to add a section, and I'm just going to do a really simple footer. But I'll do one little trick here, and I'll use a code block instead of a text element because I want the copyright date to be dynamic, because I've gone to so many websites where the copyright date is like 5 years ago, and that just looks bad, I think. So we're going to change this code here in the code block to copyright, and then a copyright symbol, which is Option G on a Mac. On a Windows, I think it's an Alt and numpad combo, but I don't know offhand. I'm sorry. Copyright, and then we're going to close the quote there, use a period to append something to this string, and then we're going to use the date function. And in the date function, we just want to return the year, so we do a quote, uppercase Y, quote, and then another period to append more text, and we're going to go blast off ink. So if I haven't messed something up, that should give us some copyright text down here. So as you can see, that's always going to show the current year, which is handy and makes us not have to constantly adjust that. So let's center everything, and let's use this. I have a slightly light gray here for the footer, and then we'll set the text here under advanced typography on this code block to red. Okay, so that's our main template. So now let's save this, and let's jump back to the back end, and then let's just look on the front end and look at what it looks like now that we have our template, right? So we have our header, we have some content, which is being reflected from WordPress using our inner content element, and then we have our footer. And all this content is because our homepage is a blog post index, which is how WordPress sets things up by default, and it's probably how you'll be set up if your website's a blog. So we're going to leave it like that, and then the next thing we want to do is go back, and we're going to create a new template, and this template is going to be our blog post index template, so it'll style that home page. So we'll call this blog post index. And then under where does this template apply, most people, when they're trying to style the blog post index, are going to go to archive and choose post types, post, all that, which won't work if your home page is a blog post index. So what we have to do is go to other and choose blog post index. And let's publish that. And then also we want to choose inherit design from another template. So this is where that inner content element really comes in. Since the main template has an inner content element, it is inheritable. If it did not have an inner content element, it would not be inheritable. So let's choose main. Okay, update that again, and then let's jump in and style this. So as you can see, our main template elements are here. We have our header and our footer, and then the inner content element, which as you can see, it says click add to add elements to this area. That's because this area is the area we can edit in this template, this sub template that inherits from main. So let's click add, and let's just do a section first, and we'll probably leave the background white, though I might change the section padding, but we can do that under global settings so that it affects all sections and save ourselves some work later. So let's go to manage, settings, global styles, and sections. And let's do like 120 pixels top and bottom. I know that's a lot, but sometimes I like to add a bit more white space and back it off if I need it rather than not having enough. So let's do, I don't know, 32 pixels left and right. Okay, so that gives us our settings for our section. Now, Oxygen has an element called Easy Posts, and this is for displaying a blog post index. So let's add it, and then we're going to go to Query and make sure it's set to default, okay? You can also set it to custom. If we wanted to say choose a specific post type, for this we'll do post and hit apply query parameters. You can actually render specific post types using this element. So it works with custom post types and anything else you want to list. So for this, let's leave it on custom while we're styling, and we'll go to our presets down here, and let's choose a preset that we like. Let's try this one. And it says, hey, we're going to change everything, so make sure you want to do that. And I like this preset, but I don't know that it goes with the site too well. Let's try this one. That looks pretty good. Yeah, let's do this one. And then we're going to go to Styles. And for the title, we're going to change the color to that. And then the font size is going to be, I think it's okay where it's at. And then hover color, we'll just set it to a slightly transparent red color. There we go. And then meta, we're going to change it to red. Perfect. And then content, we'll leave that black. The read more I want to be red. So let's change this to red. Perfect. And then change the button hover color to this, maybe this light gray that we have here. Let's look. Nope, because the text is white, so we need to change the text hover color to red. Let's try that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So like that, we've got a blog post index set up. So let's make sure you have the query, once you're done styling, set back to default, and then save. And then we're going to jump over to the front end and make sure we like how this looks, because now's the time if we want to make any adjustments. So right here you can see it is returning all of our blog posts, of which we have about 10, I think. Which, by the way, these posts are dummy content generated by a plugin called FakerPress, which is invaluable, especially if you're testing WordPress stuff a lot and need some posts to work with. So here we have our blog posts index, which is our homepage, and it's returning all of our posts. Now we need to have something that happens when we click a post. See, this is showing the content, but it's unstyled and doesn't look good. So the next template we need to make is going to be a single post template. So let's click add new template, and we'll call this single post template. And then we're going to inherit the design from main again, because we want that header and footer. And then we're going to choose singular, and we're going to choose posts. You can also choose other post types if there are other post types registered in your WordPress install. But for blogs, it's generally going to be posts. Let's click publish and edit with Oxygen. Awesome. Now we're set up here. So let's go ahead and add a section. I always like to start with sections in Oxygen. You don't have to. You can totally just put columns or divs or whatever without sections in there, but then your spacing and stuff is generally going to be more inconsistent unless you're really meticulous about keeping it consistent. Sections are just kind of a shortcut for that. So we've got our section. Now I want to do a 2-column layout, which is typical for a blog. You have kind of a content area and then a sidebar area. So let's add a columns element, and we'll do a 60/40 layout. We can adjust that and make it, 70/30, but we'll start with 60/40. Now we're going to add an image, which is going to reflect the featured image of the post. So to do that, we add the image, and then in image URL, we choose data, and we choose featured image, leave the defaults, and hit insert. Now, as you can see, there's no image. That's because we're on the Hello World post, which doesn't have an image. So let's go down to one of these other posts that has an image, and you'll see that it's now populated. And now let's go ahead and add a div. I'm going to do kind of a blocky heading for the title. So this div, we're going to set the background color to red from our global colors there, and then we're going to go to advanced size and spacing, set the padding to 16 pixels, and then let's add a heading and go to advanced typography, change the line height, of course, 1.0 probably, and then go back to primary and change the tag to H2 because we don't want it as big as our site title up at the top. And then text color is going to be white. So to insert the title of the post reviewing, we double click this and click insert data at the top and choose title. And then the next thing we want is the post author and date. So we'll click add and just choose a text element. And this is going to be white. And then we'll just add some text like posted by, and then click insert data and choose author display name, insert, and you'll see that that now grabs the author name. And that's one of the beautiful things about Oxygen's dynamic data is it can be kind of inserted in line with other text to build these kinds of strings. So now we'll do space and say on, another space, and click insert data and choose date, insert. So now we have our kind of title and information block here. Finally, we need the actual content of the post. So let's click add, insert a plain text element, double click it, highlight all the text, insert data, and choose content. Perfect. Now, sometimes you'll want to, like if we take our column div here and align everything middle, it'll kind of align the text centrally for that content element, which you don't want. So you want to select that and go to advanced typography and make sure the text align is to the left. Okay. Now let's make this look way better. So we're going to do something here with conditions to make this image only show up if there's actually a featured image. So first we'll select the image, go up and click our conditions icon at the top of the properties pane. Click set conditions and add your first condition, and under choose condition, under the post category, there's a post has featured image condition, and we'll only show this if post has featured image equals true. Okay, so now that's set up. What we kind of want to do, let's add some visual interest to this. So here's something we can do. We can select the column div here and go to advanced layout, change position to relative. Now we can take this image and we can go to advanced layout, change the position to absolute, and then set the top value to 0 pixels. And let's go to advanced size and spacing and set the width to 110%. And then get rid of the max width over here, which is a default for images. Once we get rid of that, we should be able to overflow our parent element. So let's try bumping that down a little bit. And actually, we might actually need to set this max width to some large value to make sure that we're not restricted. So let's just set it to 1000%. There we go. Now we can go to 105% width perfectly. Okay, so now we have this issue of, hey, where'd our title go? And our content's kind of behind the picture. We don't want that. So let's go to our structure pane and let's select our div that contains our title, and we'll go to advanced layout and do our z-index. Let's set it to like 100, and then same for the content, advanced layout, z-index 100. Now the content obviously disappears in this image. So we're using the image as kind of an accent in this layout. I don't really want to feature the image too prominently. So let's add a background color to this text element. Go to advanced background, and we're going to set the background color to white, and then advanced size and spacing. Let's add 16 pixels all the way around. Perfect. Now let's add some space below this title div. So we're just going to hover below the bottom edge and add, I don't know, 16 might not be enough. Let's try 32, so then we can actually kind of peek at the image there in the background. So there we have a basic blog post layout, and it uses the featured image. Now the question is, does our condition work? So let's save this, and let's select a post that doesn't have a featured image, and we should see on the front end that that image element doesn't even show up. So let's just inspect, and we have new column, the left column div, and we have our title and text block, no image element. So the element, if the condition's not met, the element's not even output in the code. So it's very clean, actually. So let's look at one with a featured image and go to the front end. And there you have it. So now you have a little bit of flavor there with that featured image. Now, one thing I would like to do, I think I want this section background color to be this kind of light gray. And then I want this div, the column div background, to be white. I kind of like the way this looks. Let's jump over to the front end. There we go. So now we have a nice blog post layout, but we have all this sidebar area that we're not doing anything with. So it really depends on your blog, but we'll set up the basic structure here. So we have a div here, but because we want to style it kind of specifically, we need to add another div inside of it. And then let's select that parent div here, this column div, go to advanced size and spacing, and let's add 32 pixels of padding, 16 on top, and then 32 everywhere else. And the reason I did that is because I want this div and the title div to be aligned with each other on top. So now this div, we need to go to width and set it to 100%. And then background color, we need to set it to white. Now we can add whatever we want to this. So let's click add, and let's do something like maybe a call to action button. Why not? Let's select the div and add some padding first. Advanced size and spacing. We'll do 16 pixels of padding all the way around. And then this button will say sign up for newsletter. That's a popular thing that blogs want you to do. So the button color, we're going to set it to red, and the text color is fine. We could add, several of these with different functions. We can add WordPress widgets. We can go to WordPress and go to widgets and add things like calendars and archives and image and gallery, and pretty much anything you want can go in this sidebar. But for now, I think that's enough to illustrate the basic setup of a blog template structure in Oxygen. One last thing we need to do is actually set up our menu. So that's done in the back end under Appearance, Menus, because the Oxygen menu element pulls the menu from WordPress. So we'll create a menu, and then let's add a custom link called blog that will just go home. So let's try copying our URL up here and pasting it in down here. So let's add that, and you would obviously have other pages on your blog, but for this basic setup example, I just have the home page. So now we can go to the front end, and we have a blog button, which means we can navigate through these posts. So let's pick this one, and we see we have our dynamic image, our content, everything's being pulled dynamically, which means we styled this once and it's applied to every post. Let's click blog and go back, and we have this post. Again, everything's dynamically populated. So we basically have a fully functional blog theme created in Oxygen without the need for a theme at all. One final thing I am going to show you, just because it does come up a lot, is this logo block here you should be able to click it and go home, right? So let's go back to the admin panel and go to Oxygen templates, and that logo block lives in our main template, so we have to go there to edit it. And so all we need to do is select this block and then click the little link icon up there at the top of the properties pane. And that will convert the div to a link wrapper. And then we'll just paste in our home link. Now we might want to use a protocol agnostic URL there in case we're going to migrate this. You don't want to have HTTP and HTTPS issues down the road. So we'll just use the 2 forward slashes and add the link. Now you'll notice that these changed color. That's because these are now, link text. So we can select the text and change the color back to whatever we want. So let's go to this one and change it to black as well. So now we have a clickable logo. So let's jump up here and click there to get back to our index. Say, hey, we want to read more on this one. Cool, I'm done reading that. Let's click there and we're back. So as you can see, fully functional blog layout in Oxygen with just a few templates, and we even have some conditions to accommodate posts with no feature image. So that's how to set up a blog template structure in Oxygen for your WordPress blog. Again, this is Elijah with the Oxygen team, and thank you for watching.